You know, Chris Sims, our reporter, loaded up this CBC porn on an iPad, took it to Parliament, and showed it to different MPs. Chris joins me now from our Ottawa studio. Hey, Chris, that must have been sort of a weird assignment saying, hey, psst, let me show you some porn. But actually, you're just showing what the CBC pumps out every day. No pun intended.
It was definitely, Ezra, it was definitely the weirdest assignment ever. I went up to Parliament Hill and asked them what they thought of it. And really, I had to bring it with me because it's something that has to be seen to be believed.
Yeah. Would you like to look at some ladies? Did you say anything like that?
No, I was very nice. I explained it first, and I always said, but before I hit play, I said, please forgive me. Click.
I have to tell you, I like saying the word penis on TV. It feels like I'm not supposed to say it, but there's nothing wrong with saying penis on TV.
That's funny, I don't.
Penis. Our motto here at The Sun is hard news, straight talk. I think maybe the CBC is trying for some copyright infringement because we've already got the hard and straight part, and they're I don't know. Let's get straight to your video. Let's show 3 clips. You talked to Lawrence Macaulay, the Liberal, Rob Anders, the Tory, and Denis Coderre, the Liberal also. Let's show the quick clips of your interactions with them. Let's start with Macaulay.
We're spending taxpayers' dollars on this, and it's softcore porn. It's on their website, and anybody can watch it. Would you like to see it?
No.
What do you think about spending dollars on things like this?
Well, I can understand promoting the French language, but I certainly would not support anything that involves porn, for sure.
Do you have an issue with the fact that, what if it were Quebec actors, in all seriousness? What if this were Quebec actors and not from France?
Well, no, it wouldn't make any difference what actors it is. It's something that I could not support at all. Definitely not.
Poor Mr. Macaulay.
Well, he says he supports the French language, so that would cover things like ménage à trois. But other things in this video, they're Latin, like cunnilingus and fellatio. I learned those in high school Latin class. That's not French.
Well, France is derived from Latin. You could stretch it. It's a romantic language, really.
That's right, and there's certainly a lot of romance here. He was clearly uncomfortable watching it, but, I'm uncomfortable with paying for it. Let's see what Rob Anders had to say. Can we see that clip?
I think if people want the Playboy channel or whatever else is out there, they can find those using taxpayer money to put out that type of stuff. I think is, like I said, there's going to be a lot of taxpayers in Quebec and elsewhere across the country be very upset that their money is being used to promote that.
I mean, yeah. Chris, is this really what we need a national broadcaster for? I mean, is there really not enough of a healthy porn industry out there that it needs a government grant?
That's what Rob Anders said, and of course, John Williamson, he was formerly with the Canadian Taxpayers Federation. Now he's a Conservative member of Parliament. That's what he said. He said, private industry's doing okay with porn and soft porn and the whole bit. So why really are we spending taxpayers' dollars on it? And honestly, Ezra, there are 3 things here. It's whether or not this is softcore porn. Also, whether or not why are taxpayers paying for it? And C, really, why are they importing it? It's foreign. It's like Wheel of Fortune, but nude. Like, why not just have it produced in Quebec?
Well, listen, I want to show one quick clip from Denis Coderre, and then I'm going to ask you about something that James Moore told you. Let's roll the clip of Denis Coderre, the Liberal MP.
I'm not going to be partless, and I think that 2TV is a great thing, but I'm not going to be part of a question that will divide the empires between themselves. Okay? Thank you.
Well, what about is it appropriate though? Is it appropriate? And like anybody can watch it.
Culture. Are you for culture?
Now, he talked about dividing the empires. That is probably some sex move I have not heard of yet. I'm immediately going to look that up on Google after the show. Chris, I'm not going to ask you if you've ever divided the empires. I think this guy just doesn't want to criticize the CBC because he doesn't want them to be mean to him on the news coverage.
Well, he was a little flustered, and I'll be honest. It's a weird question to be asked. Here, want to check this out? No, actually, I don't want to see that. And especially if there's lots of cameras around. And no, he was definitely not willing to wade into the whole debate, wade into the whole fight. So Coderre left, and the microphone didn't pick it up. But Ezra, as he ran into the House of Commons, he said, "Ask Ezra Levant."
Did he really say that?
He did.
Well, I am well known as a sex therapist, and I have lots of good advice. Mainly, it says, look it up in the encyclopedia. What the hell do I know? But listen, we're joking around, but there's something very serious that happened. Let's quickly play the James Moore clip, and then I'm going to ask you what James Moore told you when the cameras weren't running. Roll the James Moore clip, please.
Well, if that's the case, then look, I don't know. I'll take your word that that's the case, and if that's the case, then certainly the CBC ought to consider how they're presenting their programming on their application. I can't comment on something I haven't seen. I haven't seen the context of it, so I know you're in the business of just going after the CBC, but so I can't comment on something I haven't seen.
Yeah.
So there's James Moore saying, "Oh, I know you're in the business of bashing the CBC." That's his way of saying this is an illegitimate question. Now, overnight, he's had a change of heart, and he says, "Oh, maybe that was a legit question." But Chris, he said something to you moments later when the camera was off, and I didn't try and paraphrase it in my opening monologue because I wasn't there. You were. I want you to give me your accurate testimony, as accurately as you can. What did James Moore say to you about our TV station when the camera was off? And I want you to, if this was a court, I'd say tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth.
Well, you're a lawyer, and I would never do anything but. And to be clear, I don't like being the story. But what was said was so surprising that I had to at least relay it, and now it has become a story. So I'll be as clear as I can. After all this, I was in a scrum listening to Bob Rae, and it's where they have those big ones at a uni mic, they call them, in front of the House of Commons doors. And as I was doing that, I was holding my microphone, and I saw the minister approach out of the corner of my eye in a friendly manner, and he jokingly said, which is always in the context of a joke, right? He said, "So how are the Sunshine Girls doing?" And I think by that what he meant is that our papers, the Sunshine papers, print pictures of Sunshine Girls.
Yeah, generally they're not having sex when we print them, and we don't use tax dollars. But what did he say about our network and our owner, Pierre-Carl Pelado? And this is very important. Tell me what he said.
It is very important. I just needed to give you context initially. So that was the second interaction. And I answered with, yeah, doing just fine, and we don't pay taxes on them, so no problem. He said, yes, you do. Anyway, he took off. And then when I was finished finally, what I was doing for the day, I noticed he was still there. He was still in the area of the House of Commons and this big elevator. It's a very public area, right in the hallway, if anybody's familiar with it. And so I approached him and said, James, Minister Moore, really, this isn't a story? Like, really, using taxpayers' dollar to buy something foreign, put it on the website, that's not a story? And he said, again, I don't want to be the story, but I have to tell you, he said, you're just being used as a tool. You know that, right? And I said, what do you mean? And he said, PK has just started all of this in order to drive up false anger against the CBC, to drive down ratings of the CBC in Quebec in order to boost his own ratings. And the moment he does that, the moment he gets on top, you guys are all going to be canceled. You know that, right? And I said, that doesn't make any sense. Millions of dollars have been put into the English language network. Again, I'm paraphrasing as best as I remember. It wouldn't make sense for him to do that. And then he said, well, this is between us. And I said, well, I'm not taping, but, and then he interrupted me and said, well, you guys are just being a tool. You're inaccurate when you report on the CBC. You're being used as a tool by Pierre-Carl Pelado. And
that's what he meant when he said PK at the beginning.
Yes.
This is incredibly important, Chris, because this man, James Moore, is in charge of broadcasting. He appoints the CRTC chair. And what he told you, and I want you to tell me again that what you told me is your most accurate, truthful representation of what he told you yesterday. Do you confirm and affirm that to me here?
Absolutely. I don't have it on tape because I was approaching him for clarification.
Well, you were there as a journalist, and he was speaking to you as a journalist. And
sure.
He told you that in his mind, the Sun is not a real broadcaster for legitimate news gathering purposes. He told you that we are some sort of business trick to attack a competitor, and then in his mind, our chairman, our president, is conducting this whole thing as a sham, as a fraud, just to batter a competitor, and that we will be shut down afterwards. He is saying that the millions of dollars spent on this network, the hundreds of people employed, the Canadian broadcasting we put out day after day without a dime of government money, he is saying it is illegitimate and a fraud and a sham, and this is far more important than the minister paying for porn, Chris. This is the minister disqualifying himself from being the minister. We're not done talking about this. Frankly, Chris, we've got to go because we're over time, but I am going to ask you to sign a written affidavit laying out with perfect exactitude what that man said. We're going to do our show about this tomorrow, Chris, because you cannot have a minister of heritage who describes and disparages an important broadcaster in the terms that James Moore did. This story is not over, Chris. It's just beginning. We'll talk to you tomorrow.